Imagine going on vacation, but instead of paying for an expensive hotel, you stay at a friend's house while they're out of town. They've left you a list of their favorite restaurants, some groceries in the fridge, and even toys for your kids to play with. It's the perfect setup. Well, that's exactly what a home exchange is like. And today, we're sitting down with Emmanuel Arnaud, the CEO of HomeExchange, the world's largest home exchange network. Emmanuel's story is one of those rare entrepreneurial journeys that comes full circle. While searching for a home exchange in 2011 and unsuccessfully trying to book an exchange in Italy, he saw an opportunity to do it better. So he created his own competitor. But instead of staying rivals, Emmanuel's company ultimately ended up acquiring HomeExchange itself, merging the two into what's now a thriving global community of travelers who swap homes instead of booking hotels. In this conversation, we dive into everything you've ever wanted to know about home exchange, from why so many families are embracing it to the common fears and hesitations that hold others back. We'll explore what makes people open their doors to strangers, the trust and community that makes it all work, and how this movement is changing the way we think about vacationing. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Roamaroo Podcast, Emmanuel. It's a pleasure to have you on.
It's so exciting. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Now, Emmanuel, the CEO of HomeExchange, one of our favorite travel companies in the world. I can't believe we only learned about you in the past year because you have completely changed the way that we travel as a family, and we are so grateful for this. Now, tell me, how did you get into HomeExchange? How did you start with the company?
So I was a disgruntled member of a company called HomeExchange.com at the time in 2011. And so I started a competitor and we ended up acquiring HomeExchange.com and rebranding the whole company under that same name. And the reason why I was disgruntled at the time is because I was trying to organize an exchange between Paris and Florence right after my firstborn was born, like maybe 6 months after that. We wanted to leave Quentin, it's his name, with the grandparents and take 3 days for ourselves between Paris, Florence. And I contacted maybe 80 people on the platform, and most of them said, no, we're not interested. And a few said, you know what, our house is available. You seem like a nice guy, but sorry, we don't want to come to Paris, so it's going to be a no. And I was like, oh, it's so stupid. Like, this home exchanging concept is really great, but it doesn't really work because you must have a reciprocal exchange. And I set myself the goal of trying a better way to organize home exchanges, and that's how I had the idea of guest points. But I can tell you more about that later.
Yes. Now, you did mention about guest points, which I would love to get into right now, because I think a lot of people are scared or apprehensive about the exchanging process. Just like you're saying, I don't want to go to Paris, or I don't want to go to this destination, although I don't know who doesn't want to go to Paris, because Paris is fabulous. But I digress.
People who live in Paris, they want to get out of here.
Yeah. Now, the unique part about, I mean, there's so many unique parts, but with exchanging on guest points, tell me how the two ways that you can participate in home exchange.
Sure. So guest points are really simple. They are the currency of hospitality on our website. First, every home on the website has a value in guest points. That's based on its size, its location, and its amenities. Second, when I contact you to do an exchange, you can answer three things. You can answer, sorry, I'm not interested, or sure, let's do a reciprocal exchange. So you come to my house, I come to yours, no guest points are needed. Or you can say, you know what, my home is available, but I'm not interested in coming to your house these days, so why don't you give me some guest points? If the value of your house, for instance, is 100 guest points, I want to stay 10 days, I'll give you 1,000 guest points to stay in your home while you're not there. And then you can use those guest points to go to any other of the 400,000 homes we have on the website and stay for free.
Yeah, and what do you think because most people hear home exchange, and I feel like in today's world, there's probably some fear. They're used to Airbnb. What is it that helps people like jump into this world of home exchange, or what are the biggest fears they have to get over before actually doing their first home exchange?
Well, I think the biggest fear for many people is this idea of having people whom they don't know except for the website sleep in their home and have access to, what is for many people their biggest financial asset and also their biggest emotional asset, where you have all your memories. And to some extent, Airbnb helps people getting used to the idea. A lot of people who were not comfortable with the concept started having people who would sleep in their homes for Airbnb. And then they got a lot more comfortable with the concept of having strangers sleep in their homes. So that's definitely one of the biggest fear. And the way they overcome it, I think it's really different from one person to the next. So for instance, if you speak to some people, it'll be very easy for them. So for me, that fear is very, very small, and I'm very laid back. I can meet you on the street, give you the keys to my home, and you can stay whenever you want. But I'm sort of an outlier. Then there's people who are going to be made comfortable by looking at the ratings, by seeing that there's been 24 exchanges in this house, that the host got a 5 out of 5-star rating, and read all the different ratings. Some people are going to be looking, more at the guarantees that we have. As a website, we protect your home up to $1 million when you're doing an exchange, and so you can feel very comfortable thanks to our guarantees. Other people, it will be word of mouth, like, oh, a friend of mine told me about it, and so I feel comfortable doing it. Yet other people, so for instance, my sister, she was reluctant with the whole concept at the beginning, and she felt she had to try it because I was starting a company doing just that. And then she had like the first phone call of the people who wanted to come to her house. And after 2 minutes of the phone call, she felt like completely okay with letting them stay inside her home, because like the kind of relationship, she saw that they were polite, that they were asking the kind of questions she would be asking. And when she asked her little, test questions about, I don't know, how reliable they were, or, whether they would take good care of her plants, or of leaving the house very clean, the kind of answer she got was exactly the kind of answer she wanted to hear. So depending on who you are, you're going to have different things that are going to give you some trust, and enough trust that you'll overcome your fears. Also, what we have on the website is that when you join the website, we're going to give you enough guest points for you to be able to go on your first exchange as a guest. And so you don't have to necessarily host and have people come to your home before you're able to enjoy the concept. And I think that that's really also a trigger for many people. They come to this house and they realize how generous the people are for letting them stay, but also how natural the whole concept is. In the sense that they're here, they're not doing anything crazy in this other person's home. It's actually pretty easy. They're maybe taking care of the cat, giving a hand here and there, and they're having a great vacation. And so they're like, oh, actually, it's pretty easy. I could totally have people in my house.
Yeah, I know we had our first exchange was so lovely. I guess it'd be the second or third, really. But I remember they had plants to take care of, and we have a joke between us that all we do is kill plants. Oh. So we were like, oh no, we need to follow their directions to a T. And mainly we just kill plants because we travel and we neglect them. But do you find certain countries or certain cultures where they're more accepting of home exchange or less?
Well, it's a really interesting question, because when you speak to Americans, they will typically can say, oh, it's more of a European concept. It's like, it vibes with the Europeans, but here we're more about the money, etc. And if you speak to Europeans, they're going to say, oh, it's like a very American concept. We don't really do that in Europe. So what I can tell you is that in Western culture in general, I haven't seen a country where there's any strong cultural barriers that can't be overcome. Like, I'm very confident that 10 years down the road, we'll have 10 times as many members in France, Germany, US, Spain that we currently have. And now we're starting to branch out in other countries. So for instance, in India, and there we're still trying to find what the right cultural approach is. So for instance, hospitality is really, really important. In India, they have a saying that guests are like gods. So it's really part of the culture and a big time. But we are not yet sure whether all the aspects of home exchanging as it is done in Europe and the US work 100% in India, or whether we need to tweak them a bit. And I think I'll be able to speak more about that maybe in a few years once we've branched out to Africa, to South America. But for Western countries, it seems like a no-brainer.
Wow. Now, what have you learned about human nature by seeing people exchange around the world?
Oh, I love it so much that you asked this question. If you look on our Trustpilot rating, so Trustpilot are those like little ratings that people can put, and we have a 4.7 out of 5. You'll see, the odd person who was unhappy. That's very rare, but it does happen. And then most of the things are like, oh yeah, it's good value for money. I like home exchanging. I did two nice exchanges, that kind of rating. And then you'll have like a good, I don't know, 10 to 20% of the comments, which are things like, home exchange has changed my life, or home exchange has changed my perspective on human nature, or I can feel optimistic about this world we live in thanks to home exchange. And I really like those comments because I think they touch on something that's really important, that putting together people in touch and that are going to help each other out, spend better vacation, which are a really important part of your year when you can connect with yourself and with your loved ones, and that it's really easy and it can be done in a trustful way, is something that's counterintuitive in today's world where, like the media and a lot of other forces tell us that, we can't trust each other. We're bound to grow apart from each other. And so I think one of the nice things that home exchange has definitely taught me is that it's going to sound a little corny, but like people are nice, people are trustworthy. Like a system that's crazy enough to think that we can be millions of people staying at each other's home for free actually works because that's how people behave. And I find it very, it's something that's positive to look up to, and this world we live in is sort of scary these days, and that's one of the reasons to hope. So maybe that's it. Home exchange has taught me hope.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I know our first experience, we had the same fears, and you think, oh, someone's going to come in and destroy it, and our first, I forget her name, but the cargo bike mama introduced us to it. And she said it, and we saw it too, is like, it's this community of, because everyone has, they're putting something up, if they're putting their house up. So there is this mutual respect. It's not this just a transaction of the Airbnb where I give you money, I expect a certain level of quality, and if you don't, I'm going to ding you. That's kind of that there's not this trust. Whereas here it's, I'm putting my house up. There's this beautiful community that has been built and that we're all participating in. And so we all have respect where you want to leave it like you received it. And you want to, if they have some things they ask of you, you want to kind of respect their wishes. And so it does give you hope, because when you do talk to people, you're right, there is this fear in this world. But then when you actually organically talk to somebody, either FaceTime or on the phone, all that fear kind of washes away, just like happened with your sister. You realize like, oh, wait a second, like all those fears I had in my mind, they're not really out there anymore, and so you can kind of relax and enjoy the whole exchange, and it's kind of magical to watch that happen.
It is. I saw something that said, if you want to fear the world, watch the news. If you want to love the world, travel it. And I feel like that really is so pertinent here, where we might be nervous to travel or nervous to go outside of the country, but when you actually step foot and you connect with the people, because that's what travel's about, it's about the people, I think, that you realize, oh, we're actually very similar. We're all very similar.
Yeah.
We all want the same things, and at our heart, we're all kind, I think. Oftentimes the news tells us that the opposite, but that's just to sell things. But when you actually get out and talk to people and connect and see things from a different point of view, a different culture, a different pair of shoes, so to speak, there's a connection there. And I think that's what home exchange is able to do, because it also offers this touch point for communication, because it's not just, here's my house, I'll see you later, and give me a 5-star review. There's a communication between the two. Like you said before, they have a call before, or I've heard people having, a Zoom or FaceTime to have that touch point, that connection. And then you get to offer, oh, this is my favorite coffee shop. Go here. It might not be in like a guidebook, but it's in my guidebook. And I think that's so special and rare to find.
Yeah. And I think it strikes a very specific chord with families. I know that you have Scotland and Summit. Now you're a family of 4. I personally have 4 kids, so I'm an exhausted father of 4 boys. And when you're explaining to your kid that somebody else is going to stay in their room, at first they can be a little bit like, I don't want them to play with my toys. Like, I don't want them. But then, you explain it to them, and then you go to this other house where this other kid, is letting them play with their Lego or their toys, or for teenagers with their Xbox, whatever it might be. It helps them see the world in a different perspective. And I think as a parent, I mean, the same way, when a kid comes to your house and your kid does not want the other kid to have the fire truck, and you're telling them, no, you have to share. Those toys are made for sharing, and that's how you welcome people. Well, experiencing it as a family and going to another place, I think has something that's very special in terms of education.
I think there's something to emphasize here for our families out there that, I mean, we've hit a time in life where you have to have toys and entertainment for the kids. I mean, I know you're in that too, and that is one of the amazing benefits. If you get the right house, you show up and there's toys, books, maybe toddler beds, all the things that if you were staying at a hotel or an Airbnb, you kind of have to request, something. You're not going to request toys, but you may have to request a crib or what have you,
or carry it with you and schlep it through the airport and all of that.
Yeah, it's like,
but it's so amazing because kids, just new toys they love. Even if it's just for the week and they show up and it's like you said, the Xbox or new Legos, I mean, they're going to go crazy to play with those. And it makes your vacation a little bit easier, at least in this time of life. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And two amazing features of home exchanges with kids is I've already done a home exchange where we had the same number. So I had 2 kids at the time and they had 2 kids about the same age. So I arrived in the home. And not only did they have the toys, they had also, the staircase and the pool that was protected in the right kind of way to make me feel safe and my family. But also they had like the car with the right car seats for the age of my kids. And I was like, yeah, they let me use their car, and it was like perfect. Like I could just. And another one was once I was in Quebec, and I was staying in Montreal. And in the house, there were 2 cats, and we didn't have a pet. Now we have a dog, but we didn't have a pet at the time. And so I got to give my kids the joy of having cats without having cats for the whole year. And so it became sort of a search criteria afterwards, the ability to go on a home exchange where they could have cats for just a week. And that was really great also.
That's lovely. I love that. I mean, I know that our daughter, she's 3, and whenever we go somewhere, she asks, are there going to be toys there? And, if you're checking into a hotel, usually no, we brought some toys, but there's not going to be toys there. I just want to let you know because we have to communicate everything that's going to happen. Manage expectations.
Yeah.
But with a home exchange, I get to say, yes, there are going to be toys there. And that is wonderful. And when we just had a home exchange in August, so a month ago, and there were tons of toys. There were games, there were stuffed animals. And so it just made our lives easier as parents. And I think it's such a bonus when you can find a company that helps support families genuinely. That makes life easier a little bit because life can be hard and travel can be really challenging with kids. So it's great to find companies that help support families.
Yeah. And it's funny the memories that kids can have, because once I remember we did this amazing exchange on Lago di Como, so north of Italy, for the 4 kids, and my last kid was like 4 years old, and I think if you ask him, does he remember the museums? No. Does he remember the view that we had like an amazing view on the lake? No. Does he remember the gigantic Pikachu, the Pokemon, a pillow yellow? He was like, yes, like he spent the whole weeks traveling the pillow, and he really wanted to take it back, and so for him that was the best part of the trip.
That's so special. I love that. Love it. The things that kids remember.
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel like we jumped very quickly from like 2011, you had this itch you had to scratch, to now you have this beautiful company that people are enjoying, having so much fun with, and for kids. I don't know when the kids showed up there, but I mean, could you walk us through some of this journey from, I've got this headache that I need to solve, to now I'm a CEO with 4 kids. I mean, and it seems to me like you've had somewhat of a balanced life. You're talking about all these amazing trips you've gone on. How are you able to manage all of this while, achieving this goal that you were going after?
It was tough, and now my life is balanced. At some moments it was a bit less so. But at first, so I was a disgruntled member who really loved the promise of home exchange and wanted to fix it in some way. And then, with my sort of entrepreneur hat, I was also seeing an opportunity in the sense that at the time I had never heard of Airbnb, but the big company out there was couch surfing, which you might remember as a great way for people in their probably early 20s to be able to crash at somebody's place and stay for free for a couple of days or a week. And they had like something like 10 million members, and HomeExchange.com at the time had 40,000 members. And I was thinking to myself, well, it's not normal that, Home Exchange, which is essentially like couch surfing for grown-ups, has only 40,000 members when the others have like 10 million. So we got to improve the concept so we can become millions of people doing home exchanging. And so that's why I dared to start a company. I had one kid when I had the concept, 2 kids when the website went live, and thanks to our differentiation around the points, and we had a differentiation also in terms of business model. At the time, all the companies, the first thing they would ask you was a subscription-based business model, and the first thing they would ask you when you were joining was, whip your credit card out and pay us the annual fee. And I thought that was not a good idea, because the main reason you join a home exchanging website is because you want to have as much inventory as possible. You want to have as much possibilities of doing exchanges. And so we launched with a business model which was, you don't need to pay us right away. You need to pay when you finalize the exchange. And so that, you would put your home up, and so it would make a bigger website, and the website would grow that way. Also, the third differentiation we had was the fact that I thought from the get-go that we needed ways to create safety and trust within the community. So at the time, the sort of ethos of the time was like, oh, it's a sharing economy. We're just going to trust each other because we're all parts of the sharing economy. And I was like, no, we're going to put in place an insurance. We're going to put in place a deposit. We're going to put in place verification of profile so that people feel comfortable, and we can scale out of the minority of people who are outliers like myself and who are very trusting people. And so the combo of the three really helped us grow, and we were lucky that we were able to raise some fund and acquire 8 competitors, including Home Exchange. And so we acquired them in 2017. We merged both companies in 2018. And today we're 250,000 paying members as of last week, with 400,000 homes online, and we're growing strongly.
Wow, that's amazing to hear that. I mean, it's always hindsight's 2020, and it sounds very simple, but I know all of those ideas had headaches and struggles to get through it. I mean, that was over 10 years ago. But I mean, it makes sense because all those things add up. All those little things, like you said, the security, the comfort, the verification, it does give people the trust. Mm-hmm. And people do trust online more, but because of all those things that are in place.
Right.
So it's amazing. Yeah.
And to be honest, what always made me feel confident that we were going to be able to grow as a company was the concept. The fact that there's so much value in letting you stay in my home, and for me to be able to stay in your home for free, like how much money I'm saving. If you're talking about a family with 2 kids, let alone 4 kids, staying for a week in anywhere is costs like hundreds or even 1,000 or 2 euros, dollars. And so the ability to be able to save that money, I was always thinking to myself, okay, if we can scale that, like people will see the value. So that was sort of my light at the end of the tunnel, the beacon that I was following.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When I'm at the playground with my daughter and her friends and their parents, and I know that cost is a big thing that comes up. I want to travel, but I don't want to get 2 hotel rooms because I have 3 kids now, and I really don't want to do that. It's too expensive. And I'm like, hey, what about a home exchange? What about a home exchange? But I think that speaks to a serious issue that people have when they start having kids. Travel is cost prohibitive, and you have to get creative sometimes and figure out ways to travel, especially if travel is one of your passions. But I feel like, the typical hotel model, it's just not very conducive to families, especially to larger families that need to get multiple hotel rooms. So this offers a solution, which I think is wonderful, and it comes with toys.
And I think to some people, they're hesitant because they might think, yeah, but I need to lock up my belongings, or I need to, tidy up, or, there's some things that you might want to, are probably recommended, before you would actually do a home exchange. But you have to realize, okay, some of that stuff you do once, and then you're set. And the cost of time and money that you're going to get back is magnitudes more. So being able to, let's say you've got a closet that you want to just be able to lock up so you've got valuables or whatever, and that's probably smart. But being able to do all that is then going to give you the freedom to say, now I can go to Europe for a week, and instead of spending several $1,000s on hotels, I've got, all that back into the bank, and so we can travel longer, stay longer, whatever it might be.
And about that fact of, putting your valuables in a closet, or having parts of your home where you lock, I think it's really, really important that new members experience home exchange in a way that feels safe to them and that they're comfortable about. Like, they shouldn't be, they exchange and now they're on that beach thinking all the time about whatever their jewelry or their important papers that they didn't protect, because they're not going to have a good vacation. But then I think also that when you grow into an experienced home exchanger, you have less of those fears. Like a typical experience that happened to one of my friends is, so she had prepared her home for her home exchange. So she had the closet with the things that were locked under. She had put private, do not touch, careful, fragile, all those little Post-its that she had put all over her kitchen and different parts of her apartment. And then she arrived in the other person's house, okay? And there was the car keys in a big bowl full of change to be able to put in the parking lots. And it just said, help yourself. And that was the single Post-it on that end of the exchange. And she was like, oh no, thinking of all the sort of red tape that she had put all over her apartment. And so I think it's it's totally okay to be scared and to do whatever you want to make you feel comfortable. But please bear in mind that as you'll grow into an experienced home exchanger, part of those fears are going to go away because you're just with trustworthy people.
I know back in 2015, we rented out our house, and at the time, we did a sabbatical that never ended, basically. And at the time, leaving, I can remember one of our fears was our couch, because we're like, oh, what if they get stains on it, or what if they break this or that? And the second we walked out of the house, we forgot all of that. And then we did more than just had fear. I mean, we talked about it. We're like, okay, let's say they actually do spill and get it all dirty. Okay, it's a few $100 to get it professionally cleaned. It can be fixed. But all those fears we had, the second we walked away, we didn't have any more. And I think when you do things like this, when you do a home exchange or rent out your house or whatever, you have a lot of fears. But the second you step away, all those material stuff outside of, you might have some, timeless memorabilia, something that could be like a family heirloom or whatever that can't really be replaced. Outside of that, everything can be replaced. And all those fears are very easily dissolved once you step out. But you gotta take the leap. And it's the same thing with traveling as well. Often we hear people who are like, yeah, I've got kids. I'd love to take them, but it just seems like too much. Or they'll always have a what if this happens? What if that happens? And you can kind of what if yourself all day long, but until you get out there and really travel and see what it's like, you'll realize that most of those what ifs don't really happen. What if the couch gets ruined? It's probably not going to get ruined. People are going to be respectful. They're not going to go eat pizza on it. I mean, I know when we travel and we're in other people's homes, all the loose rules we might have with our toddler at times, it's no, you're at the kitchen table. You're not running around with food. Wash those hands. You're much more strict with them than you are at home. And it's because it's someone else's house and you don't want them showing up going, why is there jelly or, some residue on this chair? It's because we don't want that ourselves. So.
I think it speaks to the emotional ties that we have to our home that you talked about earlier in our conversation, because there is it's a part of us. It's part of our identity. It's the things that we have worked so hard to accumulate, but then you go out into the world and you have these experiences and you realize, oh, those are just things. They're still your things, my things, but they are just things. And these experiences that we're trading them for, and we're using those things as an asset now to be able to go experience the world, it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, there's been all those studies by like Harvard or I don't remember where that shows, like the secret of happiness. It's not about the money you have and the things you have. It's about the connection you have with your loved ones. And I really think that, being able to travel with your loved ones and connect with, during your vacation is so much more important than whatever fears you might have about that staying on the couch.
Now, I'm curious, you studied in the States and
Yeah.
lived in Europe. And how do you find when you're interacting with local Americans in Massachusetts or, local French in Paris, how do their opinions of travel, like how are they differing? When they go out to travel, do they seek different things?
So there's a big difference. And of course, I'm going to do broad generalizations. So it's not true for
Yes.
all Americans and all French people, but most French people have 5 weeks of paid holiday whenever from the moment you start, plus 2 other weeks, which are sort of our sick days that you can sort of take in a different fashion. But it adds up to 7 weeks of paid holiday per year, and that's very standard in France. It's not like if you're working at an insurance company or in a bank, you probably can get to up to 8 or 9 weeks. In the US, a lot of people have like 3 weeks, and some people have even less. So there's a pride in the US. Like people are going to tell you, oh, I haven't taken a vacation in 10 years, and they're going to be really proud about that. Whereas in France, they're going to be very proud of telling you, oh, you know what? I took 3 weeks this summer and it was great. Let me show you the pictures. So the relationship to what it means to be off is very culturally different on one hand. And on the other hand, there's also a relationship to risk that's different. When you have 7 weeks of vacation, you're probably not going to be able to afford to go out of your home all of those 7 weeks, unless if you're doing home exchange, of course. But for most people who are not doing home exchange, and B, it's okay to have like a week that's like that. I mean, like, you're willing to take a risk. Whereas in the US, like, often you're going to save up for your big vacation. It's really important. You're probably, I don't know, spending 1 week with your parents. And so those 2 weeks that you're going to have to yourself is really important. And so a lot of people, it seems, are more comfortable with like packet vacation, cruises, are things where there's less risk because the whole experience is designed to be risk-free. Which also means, like serendipity free, which means also, no good surprises, but it's like, exactly what you're going to get. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to overcome with home exchanging and finding also the right audience in the US who are either people who have more time because, for instance, they're empty nesters or retired people or who are teachers or who are remote workers, people who can take somewhat more of a risk to travel than the rest of the population that might be a bit more risk adverse. I'd love to hear your perspective on that. Do you agree?
I agree wholeheartedly with that. And it's actually very insightful. I mean, to hear, yes, and I'm thinking about the Americans, the general typical 2 to 3 week American who's like, and we get the question all the time of someone, oh, it's my first trip to Italy. I'm going to Rome, Pisa, Venice, and then I was thinking of going to Sicily as well. What do you think? And I'm
In 10 days.
In 10 days. And you're like, oh my God, every single time. And that, you're right, so we spent some time in France, and I just, one of the things I took away, and I call it the corporatocracy of America, is like when you drive through middle America, it's the same thing over and over again because it's the McDonald's, the Burger King, it's the Subway, and every town just looks the same, and it's kind of disgusting in a way, I think, because it doesn't have any culture. And there's like you say, there's no chance for serendipity of stumbling into a mom and pop restaurant. And I started to ramble a bit, but it just kind of like ignited me in a way of how it is kind of sad that the Americans are so stressed for whatever it might be. The keeping up with the Joneses, the trying to perform the job to get the next raise, and being able to kind of pull back a little bit and have a little bit more freedom. And I think there's also a piece to that, which is the social media algorithms, be it through the rankings on Google, be it through social media, where they feel like they have to go get the best of everything. If you make that trip and you do the prepackaged vacation and you go to Italy or you go to the Caribbean, whatever it might be, well, I have to go to this restaurant, I have to get this drink because I saw it on TikTok, or it's rated as number one. And all of that, often we try to tell people like, you need to put the phones down at times. Like obviously you need the maps to get around and whatnot, but it's like sometimes you need to just be. And we always try to, some of our best experiences have been the serendipitous experiences where you don't have that planned. You kind of have openness to kind of be free. And that's when you kind of have those, I think, happier memories, because when you have the prepackaged stuff, it leads to high expectations of everything must be perfect. And if it does reach that, you're like, it was a good vacation. But if it doesn't, then you're like, we had these problems here and there. So I don't have a solution. I think we're kind of trying to shine a light on this, trying to kind of build the community around, there's a lot of, obviously we work hard, but we also want to play hard too. We also want to, have that time to relax, have that time to enjoy life. And I see there's people out there there's people yearning for it and trying to figure out how, but it's not always easy because, their way of life, their income is tied to that 2 to 3 weeks. But one thing we always challenge people is, and, we've read it in books and whatnot, is like, ask for more time off. I know it seems crazy, but go to your boss. If it's the next, promotion or whatever, be okay not getting more money and getting more time, or just take unpaid time off.
Challenge that system, I think. I know we did for our honeymoon, you took one unpaid week so that we could have a longer honeymoon.
I did?
You did.
Oh.
We were challenging it even back then. This was before we even started our company. And it was because we thought, we can't, no one's going to say no to the honeymoon. Like this is like our one way that we can say, in America, they will 100% turn down your PTO except for in your honeymoon.
I think I got it paid.
No, I had
unpaid?
Yeah, you had an unpaid week.
No, because wasn't I just switching companies? No. Maybe I did. You're right. I think I did. I can't remember. Yeah. It's been a while.
I remember that.
It's been some time.
It's been like 12 years. But I think it's a fun challenge. And I think it was Tim Ferriss that initially put that spark in our head to say, ask for an extra day, ask for an extra week. But I know, having worked in corporate America, that if I took all my PTO, it was looked down upon. Yeah. And I really despised that way of thinking, because if your workers are taking their time and they are happy, then they are happier to come to work when they return.
Or more productive.
And more productive. And so I always looked at the way that other cultures handled time off and work-life balance and thought, we can do better. I know that America has the ability, but we're also the only industrialized country that doesn't guarantee time off. We actually don't have any guaranteed time off, whereas I know France does, Italy does, many other countries do. And so I think we can do better. And I think we're starting to. I mean, with COVID, good things that came out of it where people can work from home, work from anywhere. And they're starting to do that and see, it opens up a different world. And I think HomeExchange is actually a great way to do a work from anywhere. Have you found that?
Yeah, totally. We're seeing a lot of people, especially those who are like in the 26 to 35-year-old category, age demographic, that are using us more and more to do work from anywhere. So, and I don't think it's, right after COVID, there was this idea that there would be real digital nomads, as people who don't have an apartment anymore, or whose apartment is always on Airbnb so that they have an income and they're traveling like 1 month in Indonesia, 1 month. So we're not seeing much of that on HomeExchange, and I'm not sure how big that population worldwide really is. I think it's more people taking like a year off doing that than people living there like that. But what we do see is people who live somewhere, like, I don't know, they have a place they call home in New York, for instance, and they're going to take like a week off to go work from Chicago, or to work from London, or to work from Mexico, depending on what they want to do. And they're going to do that maybe 3-4 times a year. And that's something we're definitely seeing. And so people are asking questions about the quality of the Wi-Fi, for instance. So now that Wi-Fi quality is one of the triggers for a guarantee when you're a guest. So, when you come to a home, if the home doesn't match the description, you're allowed to have another HomeExchange. We'll find another HomeExchange for you, or we'll put you up into a short-term rental or a hotel. That's part of our guarantees. And so we've had some criteria for a long time. So for instance, the pool, if it's a place with a pool and you arrive and the pool is full of those little algae, which makes the water all green, of course, we'll put you up somewhere else. And now the speed of the Wi-Fi is one of also the criteria, because, when you plan to come in to work and you can't work, then that doesn't work for you anymore. So that's one of the ways we're trying to accommodate remote workers. And there's also this filter now that you can have when you're searching to make sure that there's a proper desk, like a proper environment where you have like the right kind of chair and desk, so you can actually work professionally from wherever you are.
That's a huge advantage. I definitely look for that.
My brain's still thinking about that, like take a risk in a way. Like I feel like that's almost like a movement we need to start, like wrap our head around to kind of push people.
To take more risks?
To take more risks, but like, you don't have to, like, just go. It's like, when you're on vacation, I guess what I'm thinking is like when you're on vacation, like it doesn't have to be perfect at times. Like we do talk about that when we talk about people like planning days and stuff, like allow the time and space to go take a risk and do something a little bit more free and whatnot. So
that's a huge thing with families. I think Americans, also cultural differences, we tend to overschedule. Everybody has school and then they go to practice and then they go to this practice and people are overwhelmed. And I think it's almost a little scary for people to hear like, oh, you only get 2 weeks of vacation. How about half of that you don't plan what you're doing? It's like, what do you mean? Like I'm always so overscheduled. Why would I do that? I want to make the most of my time off. So it's definitely a cultural challenge that I think many millennials and Gen Z are pushing towards, because they really value experiences over things. Yeah. But it's tough generationally. But I think there is a trend towards that, or at least a challenge, a push. I know we're doing it.
We're trying.
We're pushing.
We're trying to build the community. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you're very inspiring in that way. I mean, you're saying that we should start a trend, or you've gone pretty big on that whole idea. I mean, you've changed your whole life. You're moving to Europe. I mean, you're very inspiring for a lot of people, I'm sure, in the U.S. about just go, as you said. Well, you're living it.
I try. I mean, what we try to do is fast forward in life. I know a lot of life we think about what's my 5-year plan, what's my 10-year plan. But what if you fast forwarded 20 years, 30 years? The kids are grown up. What stories are you guys talking about at the dinner table now? Yeah. Are you sharing a dinner table still with your children? What are you proud of? What stories are you telling your grandchildren? So we try to think fast forward and look back, and that changes a lot of how you look out on life then. Maybe it's not about achieving something in the next 5 years. Maybe it is. But overall, what do you want it to look like? And I think no one's ever upset that they took the vacation with their family. No one's upset that they took that chance to spend more time together. I think that's what it's all about. But perhaps I have different, values than other people. But I think overall, everybody that has a family wants to spend time with them. I would hope.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that you're the one who books the travel.
I know you are. Why do you say that?
Well, because I probably would never book it. Not that I don't know. I would be hesitant in a way to decide and book. Maybe I would book more now that I'm older. Or I would just go to the same place over and over again.
Well, I think there's something to be said for that too. I love doing that.
And I think you're very typical. I think the stat in France is somewhere between 70 and 75% of the family trips are booked by the mom. It's very, very common. It's so when we communicate, we try to communicate more towards women than men. I mean, we love men and they're a big part of our community, but we know that a lot of the travel decisions for the family are made by women. And the statistics around who gets a house prepared for the exchanges is overwhelmingly the mothers and the women in the household. So of course this needs to change. We're a feminist, and I try to do my part at home. But the reality of it today is that home exchangers are often mom, because they're on both sides. They're the ones taking the lead.
That's fascinating.
It makes sense.
But it makes sense. Yeah.
It totally makes sense.
Wow. So you shared a lot about how home exchanges are in Europe and in the United States, and how you want to expand. So do you want to expand all over the world? What's next for Home Exchange?
Of course, we want to expand all over the world. What we see is that the countries we are in today, and so the top 5 countries are France, Spain, US, Canada, and Italy in that order. And that's about 60% of our home exchange members. We're growing fast in those countries, and we think we have a lot of growth. Like, so for instance, France, which is a country where we have the most homes, the most opportunities for exchange, we're not seeing a slowdown. And we are maybe 3 times bigger in France than we are in the US, when the US has like 7 times the population of France. So we think the potential for home exchanging is just huge in the US. But we're also, we also recognize the fact that the global middle class now wants to travel more than they can afford. And so it's true for people in Brazil, in Argentina, in India, in Morocco. And so we're also finding ways to expand in those countries. So for instance, we've done a number of partnerships with influencers in India, and we've seen some really good numbers there.
We always hear all the time from everyone internationally, I want to go to New York, I want to go to New York. And we live not very far. We've been multiple times. It's a great city, but there's so many other amazing things to see in the U.S. that I would recommend over New York for your first time visit. But people always want to. We always say the best thing to do for your first time in the U.S., but I don't think people are listening that much, is to take the road trip either way, L.A. to San Francisco. So fly into one of the cities and then rent a car, drive up Highway 1, and then stay in the other city. There's so many amazing places you can see that are breathtaking. But people are like, yeah, that sounds great, but I still want to go to New York. And it's like, oh. So, well, I think we are running out of time. Emmanuel, is there anything you want to tell potential home exchangers or your home exchanger community about where they can find you or learn more about Home Exchange?
Maybe one thing I wanted to point out is the fact that we also have a premium version of the site called Home Exchange Collection. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we have 2,500 members on Home Exchange Collection, so 1% compared to the 250,000 on Home Exchange Regular. And so that website and that community is for people who have very, very nice homes. So contrary to Home Exchange Regular, where anybody can come, you have to be eligible. So your home has to reach certain criteria to be able to get into Home Exchange Collection. And it's a great way, if you have a very nice homes, to be able to go to other very nice homes for your vacation. And we created this community because we realized that people who had a penthouse in New York, for instance, on the Fifth Avenue, would come to our website, have so many requests for exchange that, after a week they had like 1,000 requests for exchange, and they would struggle to find the right types of properties that would match their own. And so they would leave the community, and we didn't want that to happen. So that's why we created a Home Exchange Collection. So if you have a really nice home, you might want to check it out.
Now, can someone who has I'll call it a normal home, maybe have enough points to upgrade to the nicer homes?
No, okay. The Home Exchange Collection is really a community for people who have really nice homes and who don't want to have, not necessarily be contacted by people who have normal homes. Yeah. That being said, some of our Home Exchange Collection members decide to leave their home visible to Home Exchange Regular, and so they organize exchanges. It really depends. There's some people who have like fabulous homes, like completely crazy homes, amazing homes, and that are very happy to exchange with, 2 lovebirds who are 20-something, who have their little, right under the roof in Paris, love nest with just like a 1 room and almost no living room. And then there's people who have really nice homes and who expect to have really nice homes when they're traveling. So we really have both on the website.
That's amazing. I'll have to take a look.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Emmanuel, for taking the time to talk with us about Home Exchange and your own journey. And everybody go check out Home Exchange, their HomeExchange.com on Instagram, and you can go to HomeExchange.com to learn more.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're learning from and or enjoying this podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. These are great free ways to support this podcast. Also, please subscribe to this podcast on both Spotify and Apple. On both of those platforms, you can leave us up to a 5-star review, which would help us out greatly. Please also check out the sponsors mentioned in today's episode. That's the best way to support this show. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, please put those in the comment sections in YouTube. And yes, we do read all the comments.